Hello, my name is Craig Adams, and this is the Wedding Film School podcast. And no, I'm not in Europe. I am in Infocus right now. We're down in the South. I'm in Texas, right next to the Alamo for Infocus. But somewhere else in the state of Texas, we have Matt joining us on the live stream. Say hi, Matt.
Hey, guys.
So today we're going to be talking about something that Matt did an awesome video about. He's had some tremendous experience shooting with the Sony A7S Mark II, but he just knows a lot about wedding cinematography. If you've checked out his website, on our website, on our post, you'll find more information. But this is a live stream. If you have any comments or questions for him or myself, or just talking about the A7S in general, let me know. So we got a couple of people coming in, but first off, I'm gonna post the link to the actual video that you made. What did you make on YouTube? What can you describe about this?
I had a friend of mine who was like, "Hey, you should make some wedding film reviews and tutorials and stuff." I'd watch them, and I was like, "Oh, cool. Okay, one fan. All right, I'll do it." So I started. I was thinking about what I would film first, and I had a pre-order in for the Sony A7S II because I've been wanting that camera for a long time. And it just so happened that it all kind of coincided that whenever my friend told me I should do tutorial videos, the camera arrived, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this. Let's make a review video, but like for wedding cinematographers, so that it's really somebody who wants to like film weddings with it, they could get something out of it.
Makes total sense. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Cool. So you pre-ordered it because it's like kind of like, how long has it been out? Like, has it been out for long enough for a lot of people to get, or were you really one of like the first adopters and then you got that review up before most other people? Because people are excited about this camera.
I would say I'm definitely more early adopter, considering like I pre-ordered it on B&H and they shipped it to me the day that it came out. So it came out like, I think it was October 15th. And it arrived October 15th for me. So it was like that day, which was pretty awesome. So I did like a little review video, like a little just like camera test, but I didn't really think about doing, like, I thought about doing the review, but I knew I needed to actually like film a wedding with it and things like that. So I could actually have footage to talk about and not be like, it's really pretty, guys. If I had anything, I'd show you, but it's great for weddings.
It's really good. I promise it is. But
I drew a picture. Yeah. It's really high quality. It's a representation. It's great.
Yeah. So let's just talk about what you shot with before. So a lot of people are shooting with Canon 5D Mark IIIs, maybe the first version of the Sony A7S. What were you shooting with before?
Totally. Yeah. I started with the Canon 7D, which I feel like a lot of people did. It's kind of like their entry level. It was the first pro body that supported 24 frames per second. So I was really like, oh, good, I can actually shoot cinematic looking stuff. So I got that, shot with that for like 3 or 4 years. And I started working with these guys who were really talented. And they were like, listen, Canon's making some great stuff, but you should really look at Sony's stuff. And I was like, okay. So I looked, and Sony has the FS100, which at the time was like, it still is an amazing camera. And I have a friend who has a C100, and she's like, your camera mixes so well with my C100. And I'm like, yeah, it came out 3 years before your C100, but oh well. So I feel like Sony's a little bit ahead of the curve with that. So it was great. I got the FS100 because it's better in low light. I had XLR inputs. I had a lot of like the actual video camera features that you don't get with the Canon. And that and low light are like two of like the biggest things you can really go for whenever you're shooting a wedding.
Yeah. And like anyone who uses Canon gets frustrated at the lack of features that could be in the camera, but just isn't. And like I've used Magic Lantern to kind of hack the cameras, but it seems nowadays that Canon is like, hey, guess what? We've got all those features that you have to hack your camera to have, like digital zoom in while you're recording, and then like just like there's just so many things. I feel like the Sony camera is just like this secret weapon that they just take all the best ideas. They're like, let's put it into one. But like, why aren't we all shooting on them? I don't know.
It's just new technology, man. I mean, they only came out with the A7 series last year, which is crazy because we're on like the A7S II is the 6th version of that camera in a 2-year period. Whereas Canon's like, we got the 5D3. It came out in 2012. You can buy it if you want. It's great. Like, but it's, I don't know. I have friends that are still buying it, and I'm like, why would you buy a 5D3 at this point? Like, if there's newer technology, especially for video.
Yeah.
Not to totally dog on Canon. Like, I think they still have a beautiful image and stuff like that. But as far as like features go, I think that Sony is laying the smackdown on them, as it were.
Okay, so let's just talk about the price point real quick. So Gerard is asking about the $3,000 price range. Is it maybe worth it to start out with the cheaper, was it the Sony ASR or the other versions, maybe the first mark, before you directly jump to this $3,000 body? Or like, what would you suggest?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it all depends on what you need to shoot and like what you really need, because you could buy just the base model A7 for under $1,000 now. I have a friend of mine who just did that, who's getting into videos. He couldn't afford the $3,000 for the A7S II, but I was like, do you need 4K video? No. Okay, well then, do you need super good low? Yeah.
Can you edit 4K video? What's your
exactly?
computer?
It's like there is a whole host of questions there with that. But if you just want good high quality 1080p video and you don't need super good low light, I mean, my friend who bought the A7, the original one, he's shooting bass fishing videos, so he doesn't need like crazy high quality ridiculousness. He needs just a decent all around camera that'll record good video.
Yeah.
So
I want to see every fish scale and then zoom in. We have a ton of people asking about lenses. Let's jump to that. So first off, what lenses do you use? And then maybe what lens would you say that you're going to buy next? Like, what is the perfect kit for this kind of camera for weddings?
Yeah. At this point, I like it. I'm still on this historical curve of like, I started with Canon, so I still have like a Canon 50mm 1.2 and a Canon 24mm 1.4 and things like that I still have. But I was running into issues because you have to have an electronic adapter if you want to adapt a Canon to a Sony adapter and actually be able to change the aperture and things like that. So I ended up purchasing, I did a ton of research, and I was like, okay, what lenses could I get that would give me manual aperture control and be really high quality and ideally not be super expensive? And the one that fits all of that criteria is the Sigma art lenses, specifically the ones with a Nikon mount. Yeah. But it sounds fancy, but you're like, oh man, these lenses are only like, you can buy them for like $800 each, which on the scale of lenses, if you're buying like, say the Canon 50mm 1.2, that'll be like $1,500. So you're saving a pretty decent chunk of change for something that like is scientifically, like if you look at all the camera tests, it's better quality. So the nice thing about using those Sigma art lenses, specifically with the Nikon mount, is you still get the focusing as the same as Canon. So it's not like a Nikon where it's a reverse focus where right would be like far focusing and left would be close focusing. It's still the same as Canon where you focus, I think, am I even saying this right? Like counterclockwise is far
I totally
off.
get what you mean.
You know
like,
what
I've had some awesome lenses, but your muscles are so built to go the way that you're used to. Yeah. So you don't even think when you're focusing, and it messes you up if it's opposite. So it's not opposite for that.
Yeah.
So throw out some focal lengths. What focal lengths for these Sigmas? Because there's only a handful.
Yeah, there's only 3 out right now. Well, there's 4 out now, but I've been using the Sigma 24mm and the Sigma 50mm. And with this camera, I would say like 70% of the time, the 50mm is on my camera, just because it's super pretty and it's a good, especially at full frame, it's a great focal length just to get wide if you need to, you can get tight if you need to, you don't have to go super crazy.
And then what about ceremony, tight, long lenses? Are we using a 70-200 style kind of lens, or?
Yeah. I'm still on the Canon bandwagon with that, because the rumors are saying that Sigma this year sometime is going to come out with a 70-200 art lens. And if they do that, I'm going to be like first in line to buy that thing. They're saying like potentially like before April. So I'm like so excited about that. But at this point, I'm still using my Canon 70-200 millimeter lens.
But there's also the punch-in feature. I'm not sure if you can do the APS-C mode with 4K, but still, if you need like a 200 and you have something less than that, do you do that on the day of the wedding?
Oh yeah. So one super ridiculous, like I would call it like witchcraft level thing that
Just Majika,
that
just straight Harry Potter.
Sony's made, that they're like, like there's some sort of wizard on the Camry assembly line, like putting magic into the camera. Like they have this thing called clear image zoom, and it's their latest like fancy technology. They call it that because they don't want to call it digital zoom, because if you call something digital zoom, people think iPhone, and this is going to look horrible. So
like enhance, and you just like pinch out the screen.
Enhance, and it's just blurry and horrible. Yeah. So it's using some sort of like witchcraft magic level of math, which I'm terrible at math, so I don't understand it at all. But they will let you zoom in with the sensor with no discernible loss in quality. So, and I'm planning on doing a video about this at some point, but and this is included on the A7S II and on the FS5, where you can zoom in and I think the A7R too, you can zoom in up to two times. So my 50 millimeter, I can use the clear image zoom and it becomes 100 millimeter. But now I'm flying a 100 millimeter lens on a glide cam, which is kind of tight, but it's awesome. You can do some pretty cool stuff with that. So if you're at a ceremony and you're like in the back, you can put a 70-200 on it, and suddenly it's a 400 millimeter lens, and you can get pretty darn close. And that's not even considering that you're shooting in 4K also. So if you want to digitally zoom in even more, you could literally be like in their eyeball, I think, at that point, just only getting like their lips if you wanted to from the back of the church.
That's crazy, but you're doing more with less, and that's what we want. So one question that we have that a lot of people are like, yeah, what we want to know that answer. Matching like a Canon 5D Mark III or a 6D to the Sony, in my opinion, has been difficult. And other people are wondering, is there a way to make that work with picture profiles? Maybe it's like a practice kind of trial and error kind of thing. But like personally, I know it was really hard to match those cameras. Would you recommend even attempting, or would you just go all Sony?
Ideally, if you could go all Sony, then that's a great option. But I know that a lot of people like the Canon look, as it were, because from out of the box it makes skin tones look really nice. And if you watch any of my, let's see, wedding films from about, I would say even like 6 months to a year ago, like I was mixing in like some 7D footage in it for like an extra ceremony angle. Or one of my second shooters, she didn't want to switch over to Sony, so she was shooting on like a 1DX, which is total overkill for a wedding, but it's awesome. So she had, I had to match footage from the Sony FS100 with the 1DX, and that was a little bit more interesting. But one thing you can really do with that to make it better is if you shoot in the neutral picture profile on the Canon, I think that's just, you don't even have to download a picture profile. You just go in and just drop it. You probably already do this for some stuff. You drop the saturation down, you drop the contrast down, drop the sharpness down, and it's a little bit flatter image. And I found that matching that with the FS100 was pretty easy. I had to boost the reds a little bit on the FS100, but it matched really well. Now with the A7S II, I have not had nearly as much practice matching stuff, but knowing that if you can start off with a decently flat image between the two of them, and knowing that especially if you shoot with S Gamut 3 on the A7S II, it pushes reds a lot more, which makes it a lot more similar to the Canon in that respect. So you can match it up a little bit easier. Sorry if I went all technical there.
No, it's all good. Like a lot of people talk about the red for the skin tone, changing the tonality, and then also the saturation just to get the skin tones right, and then working with everything separately. But like just making a single like chart to compare this camera to that camera, if you want to like match them, might be a really cool idea. So
yeah, definitely.
Maybe that's something I should work on. So people are also wondering about battery life. Do you have the grip? Do you any tricks for that? I guess, like how many do you go through on the day of a wedding? I guess.
Yeah, it's I will say that it is not nearly as good as Canon or as the FS100 or a lot of other cameras, because it's just such a small camera. And so I found that for me, I use about 3 to 4 batteries a wedding, but I have the battery grip, and the battery grip on this camera is amazing because you put the 2 batteries in it, and it will actually tell you which battery is draining and which battery is drained. So whenever I'm shooting, I can watch and be like, oh man, my number 2 battery is dead. Okay, so I can pop it open, take it out, put in a fresh battery, and then I never really have to worry about it running out, which is nice. But definitely shorter. One tip that I figured out is the camera has like the A7S II has built-in Wi-Fi and NFC capability. And if you go into the menu and turn on airplane mode, that should give you a pretty good chunk of battery life extended. So you won't have to change batteries as often. But at this point, just prepare to buy. I think I have like between my 2 A7Ss, I think I have 10 batteries now. And that sounds like a lot, but if you buy like one of those double battery chargers, you can charge them in a couple hours and they charge pretty quickly. So, and then you won't have to worry about anything. They're super tiny too. I just keep them in my pocket on a wedding day.
Cool. So I want to try to keep these relatively short, but are you going, like, explain to me like your weddings real quick. Like, do you shoot with teams of 2, 3? Do you have, what are your secondary cameras? Like, do you only hire people who have the same camera as you? Like, what, give us a little bit of background behind the films that I've seen of yours, I guess.
Yeah, I've been shooting for, oh gosh, since I shot my first wedding in 2010, and I did the thing that I think all of us do where we shoot a couple alone. You shoot like 3 or 4, and then you're like, I never want to shoot a wedding alone again. This is a horrible idea. And so there's definitely a learning curve of like, okay, I need to find people that are good and that I can sort of train to shoot like I do. And I was really blessed in that I had a couple friends that wanted to help me out and that were willing to learn. And we started off like we started all of us shooting Canon, and then me and my friend Taylor, he started shooting. Whenever I started shooting FS100, he started shooting FS700. So it was cool because those cameras mix nearly perfectly well together.
Beautifully.
And then what ended up with that is like I still have another friend that shot with Canon, and I'd be like, okay, we'll just, I figured out how to mix it in post and editing. And as long as you're shooting with both of them with neutral, it's okay. But I'm not, with my second shooters, I've been, at this point now, especially now that I'm shooting with A7S II, shooting 4K, I really want to prioritize shooting with all the cameras in 4K, so that way I can match it all up in post. So with me having 2 A7S2s now, I can now give my second shooter, be like, hey, here's an A7S2 for you also. We'll both be shooting in 4K. So typically, like, it's just me and a second shooter. If it's like some like mega wedding, I shot like one of those like 19-hour Indian weddings 2 months ago, which was like an awesome event, but it was definitely like just so much stuff. I brought along 2 extra people with me just to make sure like everything was covered, and it was awesome.
Indian weddings are always just like something on a whole nother level. I don't know if you've ever done the same day edit Indian wedding, but I don't know. You got to make a lot of money with that. So people are also wondering, like, because you started what, 2010? You said, I can't remember. But how many weddings are you up to, and how many weddings do you hope to do in the future? Like,
yeah, I've been blessed to be at the point now where I've kind of figured out a limit for how many I want to shoot, and that is about 20 to 24 weddings a year. And so once I hit that number, like for every 6 months, once I hit about 12 weddings for every 6 months, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not taking any more weddings, because I'm not the fastest editor and I'm the one editing everything. So I'll typically tell them, hey, let's only shoot. Like I'll tell couples, I'm like, I'm really sorry, but I'm already at my max for this like 6 month period or something like that if I hit that. So to try to, because I can only edit about 2 to 3 weddings a month at this point, and I'm getting faster all the time. But it's definitely like I want to make sure that I'm not compromising quality for speed. And so I'm like, okay, if I'm only editing at max, like if I only did 2 weddings a month, I could do 24 weddings a year and not be behind. So that's kind of the goal there.
Yeah. I've always been at about 10 or 12, but in all honesty, I'm getting it down on purpose just because I want to do more YouTube and entrepreneurial stuff. I've got 3 booked for 2016, which might be a little scary, but I'm happy with that, you know. So you just have to make it what it is. Like, there's no one answer for everyone. So if you like editing, you know, that has a big factor in it. But if you don't like editing, it's really hard to do like 30, 40 weddings. Like, that's where people get into problems. So, you know, I recommend figuring out what you want to do before you book tons of people. But yeah, this has been awesome. So what we're going to be doing is this week I'm going to be introducing a new kit on the Wedding Film School gear page. So right now we have basic and advanced, and they're both Canon based. So the new kit is going to be a special Canon based kit around the A7S Mark II. And I'm going to ask our friend here what he thinks, and, you know, all the precise lens and all the little accessories that one might need. Just because I haven't shot with it myself, I got to ask the experts about what they think. I can't just be like, get this camera, it's cool.
You'll love it. Don't worry about it.
So look for that this week. If you have any questions, you can. These questions won't be posted on the YouTube video, but you can repost any questions that you didn't get answered. We'll try to get those answered as well as possible. And of course, he has his tutorial. You know, there's a ton of chatter and conversation going on. I'm sure your question might have already been answered, but if not, I'm sure Matt would be happy to help out.
Yeah.
But yeah. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, definitely. It was a lot of fun.
So yeah, every week we're doing a podcast on Wednesday. It won't always be in a haunted mansion. Sorry about the door. Everyone was cracking up in the chat. They're like, Craig's creaky door for the win. Like, every time someone came in, because I was wondering, because it would switch the video to me, but I wasn't talking. I'm like, oh yeah, it's because there's loud noises going around me. So hopefully next week's podcast will be in a better situation. But yeah. Did you have fun?
Oh yeah, this has been awesome.
Okay, I'm gonna get back to In Focus. Y'all are awesome. Stay thirsty, my friends. But until then, thank you for watching. Peace out.
Thank you. Bye.